Hello, welcome to a new series. I'm hoping, anyway, that it'll be a series, not a one-off video, though if it does, tremendously badly, then maybe it will be, and it'll just be a weird thing I tried that doesn't pan out, but I'm hoping that's not going to be the case. So it's taken so long to get to the video, there's been some personal things going on, and that's slowed down my ability to write and record these things, but hopefully we're going to get back to it now, and these will become a little bit more frequent, starting with this, I suppose. So this is going to be somewhere in between Action 60 Seconds and our full-on character creation series we've been doing for Dungeon Meshi and Vox Machina. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but it involves taking a look at the monsters in Monster Core 1 of Pathfinder, the remastered bestiary that we have got with the release of the remaster. Seeing what strengths and weaknesses each of the monsters have, what unique abilities they have, and how we can utilise them in our games. I'm going to start with level -1 foes and go alphabetically through them, so that means we're starting with the Animated Broom. I did consider doing it alphabetically from the start of the book, but that means it'll have all the dragons together, all the devils together, and this gives us a little bit more variety and changes as we go on. Also, coincidentally, King Uga Tuntun, I'm not sure if I've ever read that out loud before, is that how it's pronounced? Just released a video on Pathfinder monsters in 7 minutes or less, which is probably a good starting point for this video if you need it. I'm sure you know his channel if you've ended up here, but if you don't, go check him out. His videos are very concise, informative, and fun to watch, and I will pin them up in the corner thingy above. Okay, so Monster Core 1, the Animated Broom. Monster Core tells us that it performs menial tasks of cleaning and upkeep, but they can step in to defend a room that they are in from intrusion if they are needed to. These simple animated objects can be found in greater frequency than more complicated and costly objects. So the magic brooms are from Fantasia, essentially. They are small in size, with a construct and minus traits. A construct is an artificial creature empowered by a force other than vitality or void, the current kind of life essences we have in Pathfinder, and a minus creature has either programmed or rudimentary mental attributes. Most, if not all, of their mental attributes modifiers are at -5, and they are therefore immune to mental effects. So no intimidating a broom. They are naturally immune to quite a few things as well, not being living and all. They can't bleed, they can't be affected by death effects, disease, doomed, drained, fatigued, healing, mental, non-lethal attacks, paralysed, poisoned, sickened, spirit, unconscious, vitality, or void. This might seem like a problem, but remember they are level -1, so they only have 6 hit points and an AC of 15, and that AC can get even lower too. Something interesting about constructs is they have hardness. This is because constructs are not living creatures, they are essentially objects that have been given the ability to move. So they have an innate hardness that real life things can't really have because living things need to move. The hardness is like resistance, but it applies to all damage. The broom has hardness too, but more powerful animated items will have a much higher value than that. Luckily, there is hope. If you hit an animated item with hardness with a critical hit, or reduce it to more than half its hit points, that hardness is broken. It no longer benefits from it, and its AC is also reduced by 2, making it easier to hit, and meaning that fights against animated things are usually easier in the second half than they were in the first. I had this quite recently when I was running the Starfinder 2e playtest, and there's an animated statue in there. First half of the fight was very difficult for both parties, but once they got that crit or reduced it below half, the rest of the fight flew by. So we know its AC and its hit points, let's keep looking. Next we have skills and saves. It's proficient in the athletic skill with a +5, and that's it. Makes sense, it doesn't do much but sweep. It has a +3 to perception, and it does have dark vision. Broom cupboards are notoriously dark after all. The reflex saves are the best at +6, not too surprising, and both others, which are fortitude and will, are at a +3. They are fairly easy to learn about, only requiring a DC 13 Arcana or Crafting check, or 11 or an 8 if you've got a more applicable lore, so recalling knowledge of them is quite easy. Oh, and if you wanted to know their stat modifiers, they have +0 for strength, +2 for con, for dex even, 0 con, -5 intelligence, 0 charisma, -5 wisdom. That's the wrong order. 0 strength, +2 dex, 0 con, -5 intelligence and charisma, and 0 wisdom. Again, minus trait. They have a 15-foot speed and 1 attack, Bristles. It is a melee attack, of course, with the agile, magical, and finesse traits. It deals 1d4 bludgeoning damage and inflicts dust. In case you don't know, the agile trait means that if you make a second attack on your turn, you take less of a penalty. Usually you take a -5 to hit. Agile means you only take a -4. Finesse means you can use your dex modifier for attack rolls rather than strength, which is useful for a broom that only has a positive dex. And finally, magical simply means that the attack is magic in nature, as it is an animated broom. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at Dust. Most people will tell you that in Pathfinder, pretty much every, if not every monster has some unique ability, trait, or thing it can do that makes it different to just something else. And for the broom, that is Dust. A creature hit by an animated broom's bristles must succeed on a DC 15 Fortitude save or spend its next action coughing. Even if it is hit by multiple dust attacks, the creature only has to spend one action coughing to clear the dust out. A creature who doesn't breathe, obviously, is immune to this action. So, a DC 15 Fortitude save, or you lose one of your 3 actions to coughing and spluttering. DC 15 isn't too high, it's not too tricky, even at level 1, especially for many martial classes, but for some casters who are only trained, at level 1 they may only have a +3 on their Fortitude saves, or perhaps a +4, meaning it is much more likely that they'll fail the save. If not once in one turn, then potentially in the next, as you're not immune to dust once you have avoided it. This is tricky for casters too, as 2 actions are often required to cast a spell, so they must either cast it right next to a broom, where it can potentially hit them again next turn, or move away, spending 1 action to do that and leaving them with a much smaller array of options for casting. Again, for martial characters this is less of a hindrance, many of them having a +6, +7 or even +8 at level 1, meaning they are much more likely to succeed on the check. But even if they fail, they can still get in a good 2 strikes, or 1 and then move, or even potentially cast their own spell, as they're likely to have a higher AC or enough HP to stand up to a broom for another turn. The hardness will dampen the damage a little, and an AC of 15 isn't low. With only 6 hit points, a broom isn't likely to last too long, even against a first level party. Speaking of, let's meet the party who are going to be helping us take a look at these monsters. Don't worry, I checked with them and they're absolutely cool with it. We have Exemplo, the Dwarven Witch. He was a bookbinder who always loved the stories he would read about, of adventures and heroes, until one day he was given a book that spoke back. From there, his dog, Cachorro, became covered in glowing scripture, and now he's got a connection with the inscribed one apparently. Doesn't matter though, it's time for adventures. We have Masal, a gnome fighter who learned how to defend himself whilst on the road, whilst working as a curry of sorts in their younger years. They're looking to make their fortunes and they can sit back and relax. Ranyisi, an orcish bard who since they're young was a prodigy at playing the drums, now using them to inspire their allies and to punch stuff. And finally Ray, an adamantine dragon-blooded human gunslinger who was once part of the Night Watch and got bored of the monotony of guarding and joined a passing adventuring band to seek out a more exciting life. So let's have a quick look at how they'd fare against a foe such as the Animated Broom. So, our new party enters a room within this factory location that they've been paid to clear, discovering 3 animated brooms still performing their cleaning tasks. Apparently still under the command to protect this place, they move to attack our party, and we roll initiative. The brooms don't roll well. They only have a +3, whereas our party have +5s or higher, with one being a gunslinger with 10 paces, and 2 of them rolled 20s out the gate. So the brooms, or 2 of them anyway, are going before Exemplo, and the last one is bringing up the rear. Ray pulls their gun but does not move as part of their free action from 10 paces. Masal is up first. She draws her blade, charges the broom, and misses. She has a +6 to attack at this level, so needs a 9 minimum to hit, so more likely than not, but not guaranteed, as we see here. Ranyisi starts drumming away, playing a courageous anthem on her drums to give her and her allies a +1 status bonus to attack rolls, damage, and saves versus fear effects. She then attempts to daze the broom, but as that spell has the mental trait, and the broom is mindless, it is not affected. Next up is Ray, who lines up his Dragonmouth pistol and fires. He hits the target for 8 total damage, bypassing its hardness of 2, and still dealing enough damage to destroy it in one shot. Now for a broom. It sweeps over to Masal before attacking them, hitting and dealing 2 damage. Masal does use unexpected shift and succeeds on the roll, so they gain resistance 1 to the attack and take only 1 damage instead. They still have to make a save against dust, but they succeed. The next broom is already gone, so Exemplo is up. He steps closer and splashes the other broom with acid. It gets hit and has 1 hit point remaining thanks to its hardness. The splash damage does deal 1 damage to Masal, but none to the other broom, as 1 damage is below its hardness of 2, and so it soaks it. The next broom now moves and strikes Exemplo, clipping them for 1 damage, but they fail their save and so are now coughing due to dust. Masal gets a crit on the weakened broom however, because remember it now only has 13 AC instead of 15, and only 1 hit point and no hardness, destroying it with a crit before moving on to fight the final broom, though her final attack misses. Ranyisi uses kinetic ram on the final broom, dealing 1 damage to it and knocking it prone. I did check, and yeah, brooms aren't immune to being knocked over, so on the floor it goes. She then puts back up her courageous anthem, which is, probably the wrong way around, but there we are. Finally, Ray backs up from this other broom, reloads their firearm, and fires at it, destroying it in one shot once again. And that is that. So there we go. Not too tricky, like we said. Now, how else could you use this foe? Well, like we pointed out, it doesn't pose too much of a threat by itself, isn't going to deal a whole lot of damage or cast spells with hugely debilitating effects, and neither should it at level -1. However, it does have a couple of things going for it. Let's start with its broomness first. You could have one or two of these things propped up against a wall in a wizard's tower, an alchemist's laboratory or similar, that spring to life as soon as the party messes with something they're not supposed to, either as a nuisance that attracts other nearby creatures to the fight if they're not speedily dealt with, or as an additional factor to contend with the players that are now fighting a more powerful enemy, potentially a more powerful construct, some kind of aberration, or even the titular wizard or alchemist themselves. The brooms themselves, like we've said, don't pose too much of a threat to the party in regard to damage, and are likely to take one or two hits even from a low level party. But if not dealt with, there's always the chance of dust and its action tax. A slight nuisance for the marshals, who may need to chase a caster away and then get less options to attack or not be able to raise their shield, but as we talked about earlier, potentially a real menace for low level casters. Dealing with the brooms then becomes a higher priority, but dealing with them takes away from dealing with a more dangerous threat. You could also have some fun with different effects on the brooms. Maybe one is only used for sweeping poison dust and instead inflicts poisoned 1 as a condition, or at high levels maybe poisoned 1 and still the coughing. Or one could be used for dusting up other chemicals that cause clumsy, stupefied and so on. Could have a lot of fun with that. You can also, of course, very easily level up the monster, though we'll look at that in another video, so we could do that too, but you're going to need a good reason for someone to invest into that stronger broom, so it already takes quite a bit of time to animate something with magic. You could have a giant animated broom though, maybe one a giant would use. It would understandably hit a lot harder and have more hit points. Maybe it'd have like a dust cloud effect as well, like the dust creates a small AoE and people in the area have to make the save instead of just the target. That could be fun. You could also go full Fantasia, though rather than having an army of brooms to fight, which may well get monotonous, they're instead like drones, busy doing tasks around whichever room they are in, and as long as you're careful not to get in their way or wreak havoc in such a way that they're going to find you being a problem, they will leave you alone and you have a pseudo self section. Maybe you break a glass sneakily in another room or something to lure the brooms to that location, and that allows you to sneak past while they're cleaning it and break something else to steal or go up to the next floor. I reckon there's some fun ideas players would come up with in a situation like that. And there we are, that's the animated broom. Now that we've brushed up on what it can do, get it, I certainly have some thoughts about how to use these in future games. But I'm interested to hear what you think. Have I missed anything blindingly obvious? Or else, how would you use a broom in your game? An animated broom that is. Or I suppose a regular broom. Or how have you used them in the past? As always, let me know in the comments down below. And that's all for now. If you've liked this, please like and subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when I next upload, as my schedule, like I've said, is still not consistent, but we are working on that. And thanks for watching. Join me next time when we take a look at a very tiny dinosaur.